So you're in Edmonton right now. Can you give me a little vibe of what's that like? What's the, overall atmosphere like in Edmonton?
Well, I'm kind of discovering Edmonton really for the first time, and I'm realizing that everything's kind of underground because it's so cold. No one's above ground right now, right? So it's kind of hard to understand the vibe per se. But I've spoken to a few locals, and there's definitely something in the air. Obviously, the match itself is huge, but Fonzie's return home. This is not a soccer city necessarily. It's growing into that, I think. But the sports fans know about Alphonso Davies, and speaking to a few of them, that they're saying that really began when he moved to Bayern Munich. Obviously, they knew of him at Vancouver, but when he made that move, that 20 million euro move to Bayern Munich, they began to notice him and realize, wow, okay, we got another local kid here who's not a hockey player, who's really, really good. And I think he's really taken that, captured that, and the city's captured all that as Fonzie. And I mean, this guy's so larger than life on and off the field, right? He's been the perfect, I think, role model for the sport in this city. So there's definitely a buzz. I'm seeing lots of flags and posters and stuff around the city. So there's something happening here for sure.
Yeah, I heard actually that Canada Soccer said they've sold something like 45,000 for
Yeah.
tonight's game, which is huge because, we've seen Canadians follow the women's team for years, right? Because they've been so dominant in the sport. But this is the first time in, decades that we're seeing a men's team that actually has the ability to qualify for the World Cup. And especially with the player of the stature of Alphonso Davies, like he's, like you said, he's at Bayern and he's also like playing well at Bayern. That's a top Euro team. So, what's that like seeing, the shift after so long? Like we are potentially going to see a Canadian team qualify for the World Cup since 86.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I'll say this though, and much as we're celebrating Canada right now, and so we should, right? I mean, it's like I said, it's amazing. We're not there yet. Still lots of work to be done. But I think, I mean, I'm guilty of this, dismissing other editions of the side, right? Late in the 90s, they came close to making the Hex. Craig, my mate Craig Forrest is always on my case saying, hey, we were pretty good once upon a time too, But he also admits that, listen, this is a little bit different. We didn't have the superstar back then that we have now, obviously. And more than just maybe one superstar, a few superstars growing into those roles as well. But yeah, I mean, having covered the sport for way too long, I just aged myself, I know that. But, looking at Alphonso Davies as being the poster boy of Canadian football, which is what he is now, and seeing where he's playing, and like you mentioned there, how he's playing. He's a star performer at arguably the best club in world football. I mean, that is crazy. A player that's still learning who he is as a footballer, right? I mean, we know he's a defender at Bayern Munich, but they're actually playing him now a little bit. They're starting to experiment with him further forward as well. So this kid won't be a left back for much longer, I don't think, on the biggest side in world football, arguably it's Bayern Munich. I mean, it's tough to argue right now. They're fantastic. So I think it's just, man, just sit back and breathe and enjoy it right now. I think it's going to be a prolonged enjoyment as opposed to a little blip in the soccer stratosphere in this country because, John David's not old, right? He's young. Tajon Buchanan is so young right now.
Oh, young.
Stefan Eustaquio's not old. These kids coming through are still really, really young. So it's the beginning of, dare I say it, a golden generation. And I know, we've all heard the term before, right? Golden generations. Yeah. Portugal, Italy, England. So many golden generations, right? And it hasn't worked out for my team. But I look at this team right now in Canada, and I think, man, this is a golden generation. And, I think the hyperbole is understandable given where we've come from as a soccer nation, because we haven't come from that much, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You brought up Jonathan David, who we also cannot forget, and Tajon Buchanan, who both started last game Canada had against Panama, the epic win in Toronto, which was fantastic.
It was epic, right? It was epic. That's a good word to use. It absolutely was.
It was everything. Like we haven't seen anything like that before. It was incredible. Do you think Herdman is going to keep that same lineup? Because he had Fonzie and David playing up front and Buchanan just behind them. What are you feeling for the lineup going against Costa Rica tonight?
That's the question, right? I'm fascinated by this. I spoke to John yesterday, and I asked him, given the absentees in the last window, Carl Larin wasn't playing, Atiba wasn't playing. Has he had headaches from a selection standpoint? He goes, yeah, he has. It's been tough because Carl Larin automatically you would think fits into this starting 11 because he's got 12 goals in 11 games this calendar year. Atiba's Atiba, right? He's the soul of that team. You can't drop Atiba, can you? Or can you? Because you mentioned that performance against Panama was the best performance we've seen for a long time, including those great draws against the States and Mexico. Does he play Fonzie in a 2 up front? One thing I love about this team and Herdman is that formations are just a suggestion, right? He might start off in a certain formation, but he'll adapt within the game. It could be a 3-5-2, which is great, but before you know it, playing a 4-4-2 or a 3-4-3, right? It's really is modern football, right? And these players are so versatile, but I don't know. I've got a suspicion. I mean, Tajon could come off the bench as a crazy impact sub, right? But the way he's playing right now, I've got a suspicion you might see Fonzie drop to the midfield and have a 3 up top of David, Larin, and Tajon. And then because I think in that first game of qualifying, they had Fonzie in that left wing position.
Mm-hmm.
If memory serves me right. I don't know is the answer. I'm not the tactics guy. You tell me, what do you think?
Well, it's tough, right? Because I looked back at a bunch of the lineups they've been using, and you have Alphonso Davies playing all over the place. Like, he's so versatile and he's so quick that wherever they put him, he's so he's adjusting to every role. So it is tough to say. Like, will we see him in the midfield? We might, right? Because he has the ability to play anywhere. But I do think I think they're going to keep Tajon on the bench as well. I think they're going to bring him in as a sub because, like you said, what an epic sub to have. Like, he's so good. And I think you can't not start Larin now that he's back. So I don't know. It's tough to say, but I really would like to see Tajon get minutes, whether he starts or not. I think he's such a young little firecracker of a player that it would be nice.
Yeah, Club Brugge. I mean, those fans probably don't know what they have coming just yet.
Yeah.
And I tell you, John Herdman said yesterday, I mean, I was surprised he said it because he's not one to really be too crazy hyperbolic, but he said that Tajon's got the same kind of talent as Alphonso. I was like, geez,
so
calm down. He might have, right? When you see him play and those moments, he has that X factor about him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And how great is it to have that guy as an option late in the game with some tired legs and that cold weather to come at those Costa Ricans. And bear in mind also, there's a pretty big game coming up on Tuesday as well. So you've got to rotate as well.
Exactly.
So it's oh man, I mean, the fact that we can talk about a player of Tajon Buchanan's status, emerging status as a guy that might not start for Canada right now. I mean, that just says everything about this team at the moment, doesn't it? So that's really exciting for me. So tactically, I don't know. I mean, I imagine they'll be more wary of Mexico. This Costa Rica team's not great. So they might be slightly more on the front foot against Costa Rica, in which case maybe you do want to start Tajon. But, so where does Fonzie fit in? I mean, like I said, anywhere, right? Put him in goal. He'll be great, I'm sure. But you don't Richie Larrea and Alistair Johnston, I think, are fantastic right now playing wide fullback roles or wingback roles. They've been great so far. Richie's probably my favorite player in the world right now, actually. I love him. He's just so
He's
nasty.
such a likable player. There's something about him.
If you're wearing red, he's likable. Otherwise, bit of a bastard.
Yeah.
Love that.
No, I do. Well, I think maybe because he plays for our team, right? And like being from Toronto too. Like I just saw him play in our last game for TFC, and it's like Ricky, he's our guy. He's
our guy, right? Yeah, he's great. He's always smiling, even when he's like doing something terrible to an opponent. Yeah. He's smiling. He does it with this smile in his face, right? Baby face assassin, is that what they call him? I'm not sure, but he's great. Yeah, and he's what we need. Again, talk about the personalities that this team has with Alphonso, but Richie's a guy that is kind of quiet, diminutive off the field, but he's got on the field, he becomes larger than life, right? And I think he's wonderful. He's so much fun to watch. And he's pure CONCACAF.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
we haven't had that player for a long time, ever, maybe.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. One thing I also just want to bring up is the weather. Let's talk about it because everyone's talking about it.
Awful, by the way.
Like you said, for Costa Rica, they're not that strong of a team. Navas is injured. He's not coming back from Paris. So Canada beat them last time in the Gold Cup. This is our first qualifying game against them, but they beat them 2-0 comfortably. We should win tonight's game, but as you kind of implied, the big game is next week against Mexico. What does the weather, the cold, the Canadian atmosphere, the fans for once cheering for us and not those fans in Mexico, what does all of that have to, how is that going to help our team?
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously, Costa Rica don't want to play in -5 conditions, clearly, right? But you know what? Notice Canada.
Yeah.
And I think it's somewhat overblown that, Canada, you speak to any of those players, they don't want to play in these conditions either. I mean, they're probably more suited than Costa Rica, perhaps, but they don't want to play it. And at training yesterday, I mean, they've got the snoods on, the hats, the gloves, the tights. They're like, they're not particularly, embracing the elements of Edmonton, put it that way. But they are more prepared. They're acclimatized. They've been here for a week or so, whereas Costa Rica have had, I think, one good session in Edmonton to get used to it. And the turf too, right? Remember, it's turf, which not one footballer in the world likes to play on. But Canada's got a week to get used to that turf as well. So it will be a factor and it will play into Canada's hands. But I don't think it's going to be, the deciding factor. I think it comes down to football. And I think Canada's just a better team than Costa Rica. With respect, I mean, they're not a bad team, Costa Rica, by any stretch. They're a veteran team. They're aging. And like I said, no Keylor Navas. He's not there right now. But, Joel Campbell's a good player. Canada will have difficulty dealing with him. So I really think that Canada, you're right, are favourites. They are big favourites. They should win this game. But nothing's a gimme in this group. Nothing's a gimme in CONCACAF. They're all tough games.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just ask you really quick, what is your prediction for tonight? What do we
All right, my prediction is, and yeah, I rarely get these things right. 2-0 Canada. I think it's going to be a pretty tight affair, but I think Canada will go at Costa Rica. And I think, having that depth off the bench, if they decide to keep Tajon on the bench, and if not, whoever's on the bench instead of Tajon will be a decent player, obviously. So 2-0 Canada is what I'm saying. How about yourself?
I actually would agree. I mean, I think Canada, we have a lot going for us right now. I think they could even make it 3. I really feel like they're going to win today. I think it's going to be a comfortable win, but they're going to want to put on a show at home too, especially because they haven't been out in Edmonton. So I think a lot of that is going to be like, guys, let's just nail it.
When do you get 45,000 plus Canadian fans?
Exactly.
I mean, my God, this is not an everyday occurrence, right? We should just sit back and enjoy this, and players shouldn't sit back, but they should definitely enjoy it.